Welcome back, and joining me for a closer look at the day's markets activity is Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities. Thank you so much for your time, Faheema. It's great to see green screens all across the board and an easing in the rand pressure there. Is it all to do with the US CPI?
Afternoon, Zanati. Good to be back. Yes, it was a good day today in the markets. And like you said, we're seeing a lot of green. The JSE is up. The US opened very strong. And yes, I definitely think it has everything to do with the US CPI. So we did see those numbers come out this afternoon, and it was broadly in line with consensus expectations. On the core inflation side also came in a bit lower than what the market was looking for. So I think investors are really taking comfort in that.
Okay.
And then we also saw some of those big banks in the US release their results today, and that also looked very positive.
Well, actually, I want to zoom into that because, I mean, in terms of talking about the Fed's next move, a lot of the emphasis has been put on the strength of the U.S. economy. So with this U.S. economy being so strong, are those upside surprises that we're seeing in the banks and maybe the other companies that will come out with numbers really just a testament to the fact that, of course, these companies will do better in that kind of economy that it is expected?
Yes, I think the results from these bigger banks, and I mean, there were a number of them that reported today. We had JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, and so on. And all of them beating consensus expectations by quite a lot, which, like you said, I think is really testament to the fact that the US economy remains quite resilient. And, you know, we've seen a few rate cuts come through at the end of last year. Which I think just basically help boost the business sentiment in the economy and increase things like your investment banking and M&A activity, which has been quite positive for these banks. But yes, I think it's very good to see that despite relatively high interest rates, we are still seeing an economy that seems to be strong. The job numbers still appear to be strong, and the company results are favorable.
All right. Well, there was another inflation figure that came out from the UK for December that coming in softer than what markets had anticipated. Is this also maybe bringing some calm to the worries that we'd seen over the spike in the government bond yields?
So I think the issue with the UK economy is it's quite an opposite situation to what we're seeing in the US economy.
Yeah.
So looking at inflation, it did fall to 2.5% as in December, but it's actually quite unexpected. You know, it's weaker than what consensus was looking for. And in this case, I think it's just due to a very sluggish economy. The UK economy has not been growing at the pace that it should be. But I suppose on a brighter note, it is falling towards the 2% inflationary target. So hopefully we'll start to see some rate cuts in the next few months to help stimulate that economy. But I think in general, the UK economy does have quite a few headwinds. You know, there's issues regarding the fiscus and just the general economic growth prospects. And then, of course, you know, now that we have President-elect Trump in power, he could likely impose tariffs on imports coming from the UK, which will also have a negative impact on that economy.
I actually saw for most of the day, just to bring it back home to the JSE, that the gold counters were actually some of the biggest winners on the day. We had Harmony Gold there leading that charge. Was there anything specific that was buoying these gold miners?
So I think it's just we've seen a bit of an increase in the gold price today. And I think there's just a more favorable environment at the moment for the gold price, given that yesterday, the first set of numbers we saw that came out of the US were those PPI numbers. And I think it just gave the market a signal ahead of the CPI numbers that were released this afternoon that inflation seems to be under control, and that was indeed confirmed when we saw those CPI numbers. Okay. So that means that you know, yields in the US have fallen, and that's why we're seeing the US dollar weaken. And those conditions are generally quite positive for the gold price, given that it doesn't yield any interest.
Yeah.
And it's basically just the perfect environment for the gold price, and that's why we're seeing the gold stocks, I think, push higher today.
All right. Well, before we get to your stock pick, let's chat quickly about Karoo. They came out with their third quarter results. It was actually quite interesting to see the share price movements because I think when I first opened the SENS, it was up more than 2%, maybe almost 3%, but now it's fallen 6%. I'm not sure exactly what's responsible for that divergence, but really just looking at the performance, another record year. I don't know, is this company looking like a defensive company at this point?
Yes, so they reported a very strong set of 3Q results that beat consensus expectations. It looks like those investments that they've made in Europe are starting to pay off. And of course, they've got a very strong position in Southeast Asia. So if we look at the subscription revenue there, it was up about 26%. But just to your point on why we're seeing a bit of weakness, I just think that the stock price has had such a strong run over the past year. It's up so much that investors are possibly just looking for opportunity now to take profits. But in terms of the year ahead, it seems like all is on track. If we look at the CarTrack subscribers, that's increased very nicely to over 2.2 million. And there will probably be some further growth in the year ahead. I do think it's a pretty defensive company given the markets that it has exposure to, and a lot of those markets are still growing given that they're an underserved market. So, yeah, I think for now it's just some profit taking, and we'll probably see some recovery later on.
All right. Well, let's quickly get to your stock pick for today, Faheema. What are you choosing?
So my stock pick is Grindrod. Grindrod is a logistics company, and it, of course, plays a very crucial role in our South African economy, basically via its South African and Mozambique ports and railways, which has been crucial amidst the challenges that we've been experiencing with Transnet. And I just think if you look at the share price at the moment, it's really been sold and oversold because of the political issues that they're experiencing in Mozambique at the moment. But it does seem like the political parties, they are working together to come to some kind of a solution. And once we see that happen, I do think there will be a pop to the upside in the stock. So it is definitely one to keep an eye on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for keeping an eye on those markets for us, Faheema. That was Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities.